This is a recording of a webinar which was co-produced with parents and carers in Suffolk and which explains annual reviews of education, health and care, or EHC plans. This recording will explain the purpose of an annual review and the purpose of an EHC plan. We'll look at the different stages of the annual review process and how you and your child are involved. Also, what decisions can be made at the end of the annual review process, and we'll finish by looking at early and transfer reviews and preparation for adulthood. You can scroll through the chapters of this recording if you wish to watch just a particular section. This recording will refer frequently to the Special Educational Needs and Disability Code of Practice of 2015. You can download this statutory guidance for free if you would like to. Chapter 9 is all about EHC needs assessments, EHC plans, and annual reviews. In order to understand the purpose of an annual review, we need to first understand the purpose of an Education, Health and Care, or EHC, plan. So just to be clear, the purpose of an EHC plan is to make special educational provision, that means support, to meet the special educational needs of your child or young person. Also, to secure the best possible outcomes for them across education, health and social care, and I'm going to explain what we mean by an outcome in a minute, and as they get older, to prepare them for adulthood. An EHC plan outcome is what your child or young person will be able to do or achieve in an agreed time frame with the support outlined in the EHC plan. Remember, an EHC plan is a live document. You can send copies of new reports, assessments and information to the Family Services team in our county's local authority at any time. You don't have to wait for the annual review. It's important to remember that the plan needs to grow with your child as they get older, reflecting any changing needs or aspirations. So what is the purpose of an annual review? The annual review is a legal process to monitor the effectiveness of an EHC plan. In other words, to check that it's doing its job in making special educational provision to meet your child's special educational needs, in helping your child or young person to make progress towards their outcomes in education, health and social care, and helping the child or young person prepare for adulthood. The SEND Code of Practice says, reviews must focus on the child or young person's progress towards achieving the outcomes specified in the EHC plan, and consider whether these outcomes and supporting short-term targets are still appropriate. So, are the outcomes and targets relevant to what your child or young person wants to do as they get older, and are they achievable? Have you in the learning setting been able to see the progress your child or young person has already made towards achieving the outcomes? And remember, most outcomes in an EHC plan are set over a key stage. For example, by the end of key stage 2, Maddie will be able to walk unaided up and down the school stairs. So when you are halfway through that key stage, you and the learning setting would expect to see quite a bit of progress, and we'll be looking at this in detail later on. The SEND Code says that reviews should also check that the support from education, health and social care is working and helping your child to make good progress, and consider if any changes are required. For example, changes to the outcomes in the plan, or to the support, or possibly to the learning setting. The annual review is more than just a review meeting. It is a process with several stages laid down in law. The review meeting is one part of this process. This flowchart can be found on our annual review web pages. It breaks down the annual review process set out in law, into a series of steps. This is at the request of parents who asked for steps to make it clearer to understand. And we're going to look at each part of the process in this recording. The SEND Code of Practice says that at least 2 weeks before the start of each term, the local authority should contact all the head teachers and principals of nurseries, schools and colleges who have children with EHC plans, and also contact health and social care to let them know what annual reviews are due that term. The local authority must state which reviews will focus on transition and preparation to adulthood so that the educational settings, health and social care have enough time to prepare. As part of the annual review process, the local authority, or LA, must make sure that a meeting takes place to review the EHC plan and can ask the head teacher or principal to arrange and hold or host the meeting if the child or young person attends a maintained nursery or is at a school or a pupil referral unit or post-16 setting. This responsibility may in turn be delegated to the SENCO or Special Educational Needs Coordinator. The local authority will arrange the meeting for a child or young person who is not attending a school or other institution. This could take place at the family home, for example. This would be agreed between the LA and the family. Annual review meetings can be delivered virtually by phone or video conference if this is easier or safer. And since the pandemic, many learning settings have become more used to this. Some families and young people may prefer a virtual review meeting as they may find it easier to take part, especially if there are a number of practitioners invited. Before your review meeting is due, speak to your child and ask them what they would find more comfortable so that you have plenty of time to talk to the learning setting about how the meeting might work best for your family. For the review meeting to be effective, good preparation is essential. So, preparation is included in the stages of the annual review process set out in law. So in step 1, the host invites the following people to a review meeting and asks for written advice from each of these: the child or young person and their parents or carers, the learning setting if they attend one. If the child or young person is not attending school, then a person in the local authority who has experience and understanding of special educational needs will be invited. They must also invite a local authority SEN officer. In Suffolk, this means a member of the Family Services team who are responsible for EHC processes in our county. Also a health service representative and a social care representative. These invitations need to be sent out well in advance of the review meeting. And we're going to look at what the advice needs to focus on a bit later in this recording. The host may also invite other people involved in supporting your child, for example, a therapist or perhaps a teacher from one of the specialist education services who may be supporting school to support your child or young person. Your child may also want to invite someone trusted to support them to participate at the review meeting. Who is invited will depend on your child or young person's individual needs and circumstances. In line with the Children and Families Act and the SEND Code of Practice, reviews must be undertaken in partnership with the child and their parent or the young person, and must take account of their views, wishes and feelings. So your views and your child's views are therefore really important. The local authority, school or college should help you take part. You can also contact our impartial Sendia service for help and advice. The local authority has produced forms for gathering views and information as part of the annual review process. So families should be sent the Family and Carers Views form by whoever will be hosting the annual review meeting, which is usually the learning setting. At the end of the day, however, you don't have to use the form to send in your views. You could type up and send in your own document, or you could send in a recording of your voice giving your views if you find that easier. What is important is that you are given the chance to share your views well before the meeting takes place. You and practitioners invited to offer information will be asked to share views about your child's achievements, what is important to them now and in the future, and your views about their progress, what is working well and what is not working so well. So firstly, think about what progress your child has made towards the outcomes in the EHC plan. If your child has not made progress in some areas, what do you think might need to change to help your child move forward? Do you think that new strategies of support are needed? Or is new advice or assessment required? Do you think the learning setting is still appropriate? Include any ideas for what you believe would make things better for your child. Other points to think about include, have there been any new assessments or observations recently? Have any new needs been identified for your child or young person? Or have any outcomes been achieved? Your child or young person's views are especially important. Remember, what is important to your child, what matters to them, may be very different to what you or practitioners believe is important for them. In other words, what you think good support looks like. And it's really important that the review process captures both. The Council for Disabled Children has a helpful video called the EHC Plan and the Person-Centered Connection, which looks at the importance of making sure that the child or young person is at the centre of their EHC plan. Suffolk has created a different prompt sheet for capturing your child or young person's views. Parents and carers and/or young people should decide who will capture their views and how. Views can be captured in a variety of different languages and formats, including video clips, Makaton writers and widgets, drawing, using comic strip conversations, or having a friend support them to give their views. In our service, we know that many children and young people may find it hard to clarify and to share their views, thoughts and feelings. Some of our Send Us resources may help your child or young person feel more confident about sharing their views. We have a web page of person-centered resources which may support them to do so, and further information and resources which may help them understand what an annual review is and help them to take part. The National Development Team for Inclusion have produced a range of resources to help young people share their views as they prepare for adulthood. The leaflet that you can see on the left of the screen, Planning My Future Life, has a number of templates which you or practitioners working with your young person may find helpful. We have a PowerPoint template which some children and young people in Suffolk have found helpful. You can request it from the Leaflets and Resources webpage of our Send Us website in Suffolk. Each box that you can see here is a different slide of the PowerPoint, and the child or young person can choose to use one or two slides or all of them, uploading their photos or other pictures as they would like. Some children have chosen to email the slides to their school's Senko to share their views before the annual review meeting. And we also know of young people who have presented their PowerPoint at the beginning of the annual review meeting. And this could, of course, be done virtually. Some children and young people have chosen to send an email uploading their own photos. In this example, the young person has chosen to show some approaches and resources which help them with sensory and other needs, like a weighted blanket and ear defenders or calming stones. Remember, if your child or young person is not comfortable with some of the support in the plan, they are not likely to make good progress. So some of the things they might want to think about include: what have they been enjoying? What are their dreams for the future? What kind of support have they found help them most? What are they struggling with? And what do they think might make it better? Sometimes it can help to ask your child or young person, if they woke up tomorrow and had the best day at school, what would be different? Let's just pause to think about how practitioners might be involved. We explained earlier that some practitioners who are or have been working with your child from education or health or social care may be invited to the review meeting and asked to provide some up-to-date advice. And this advice will focus on your child's progress towards the outcomes in the EHC plan and any recommendations which these practitioners might suggest. However, some practitioners may play a very important role in helping your child or young person to identify and express their feelings and what kind of support helps them most as part of the preparation for the meeting. Others may have built a trusted relationship with your child or young person and may be happy to support them to participate at the meeting itself. So we've talked about the importance of you and your child preparing your views, and also practitioners invited to the annual review meeting preparing their views or advice. And I mentioned earlier that preparing views and information needs to happen well in advance of the review meeting. This is because the law says that at least 2 weeks before the review meeting, the information gathered from your child or young person, from you and professionals, needs to be sent out to everyone invited. This is really important, as you, your child and the practitioners need time to go through it all so that you can be properly prepared for the review meeting itself. If you know that your child's review is due at the start of a term, you can be proactive in the term before. You can remind the learning setting and any practitioners you know who are involved with your child that up-to-date information will be needed for next term's review. So although there isn't a time frame in law for when invitations to the review meeting are sent out with the request for information, this must happen in enough time for the information to be shared with everyone at least 2 weeks before the review meeting, as the law requires. So it is helpful for parents and practitioners to start thinking well in advance. So now we get to the stage in the annual review process where a meeting is held between the pupil, if they are able to attend, the parents or carers, the host, and as many of the professionals invited who can come. So just to be clear, health and social care practitioners may not be able to attend, but they will have been invited and asked to share any updated information about your child in advance of the meeting. There are many thousand annual reviews in Suffolk due each year, so the Family Services team, who are responsible for EHC processes in our county, will only be able to attend some key review meetings. If you believe it is important for a member of the Family Services team to attend your child's next review meeting, contact them in advance to explain your reasons. Although you will have shared your views and your child's views in advance, many people still find it helpful to have a list of their main points to hand to refer to and also to help keep them focused. If the meeting is being held over the phone or using your laptop, make sure you have some paper nearby so that you can jot down your questions and make any notes as the meeting takes place. Maybe you want to refer to a recent report or assessment. If so, it's helpful to have highlighted the sections you want to talk about in advance so that you can find them quickly. And remember to include any new information about your child that you would like to share. The SEND Code of Practice states that reviews must be undertaken in partnership with a child and their parent or the young person, and must take account of their views, wishes and feelings. This goes back to Section 19 of the Children and Families Act that states that local authorities must have regard to the views, wishes and feelings of children and young people, and the importance of supporting them to take part. So review meetings should be person-centred, with the child or young person's involvement at the heart. As we mentioned earlier, take time to think about how your child might like to be involved in the review meeting, and share your ideas with the learning setting so that everyone can agree a format which your child will feel comfortable with. This will also help them appreciate that they are the most important person in an annual review, and help them understand that this review meeting is all about making sure that everyone gets the support right for them in their EHC plan. As we mentioned earlier, a virtual meeting may be easier for your child or young person to take part in. They may feel much more relaxed at home. They may find it less intimidating to talk to other practitioners remotely rather than face-to-face. They may already feel very at home with talking to others remotely using media like WhatsApp or FaceTiming to contact their friends. An EHC plan might be uploaded and shared on screen. We have heard examples of where some young people have been happy to edit their plan live themselves when it has been shared on screen. Although the whole process of an annual review is laid out in law, the actual format of the review meeting can differ from setting to setting, but the SEND Code of Practice is clear that it should follow the principles of a person-centred review with your child or young person at the heart. From our SENDIAS annual review web pages, you can link to the Helen Sanderson organisation website, which has a range of free person-centred resources, templates, videos and guides which you may find helpful. You'll also have access to this leaflet on the right of your screen, which goes through the principles of a person-centred review meeting. The Psychology and Therapeutics Service in Suffolk can offer training to schools around a person-centred approach to reviews called PATH. PATH is a style of solution-focused planning where one of two trained facilitators will draw on large pieces of paper on the wall to represent the young person's path forward. Everyone attending is encouraged to be involved in adding agreed actions on the papers. Our annual review webpage links to some further information about PATH if you would like to find out more. For practitioners watching this recording, the Council for Disabled Children have produced a helpful top tips to support the participation of children and young people guide, which you may find helpful. Before we go any further, just a quick reminder that the SEND Code of Practice says reviews must focus on the child or young person's progress towards achieving the outcomes specified in the EHC plans. Remember, outcomes are the statements in the plan which explain what your child will be able to do in an agreed amount of time with the support outlined in the plan. The review must also consider whether these outcomes and any short-term targets remain appropriate and whether changes are needed. Reviews should also check that the support from education, health and social care is working and helping your child to make good progress, and consider if any changes are required. For example, possible changes to outcomes or to the support in the plan, or possibly to the learning setting. Reviews also provide an opportunity to check that the outcomes and provision or support in the plan are specific and clear so that everyone's understanding of them is the same, and also check that the plan is written in a way that is clear and easy for children, young people and their parents and carers to understand, which the SEND Code expects of an EHC plan. You may find it helpful to watch our Sendias video explaining the process of drafting and finalising an EHC plan. This includes exploring what a good EHC plan looks like. Remember, a good EHC plan should describe positively what your child can do, be clear, understandable and easy to read by you and your child as far as they are able, include good, relevant outcomes, and tell your child's story well and clearly. So if you read your child's plan and it still sounds like a description of a child at primary school and your child is now a teenager, then it needs updating, and you can start to think about what might need changing in time to share your views for the review meeting. We have explained that you should have been invited to prepare and share your views at least 2 weeks before the review meeting, but you may of course like to ask questions or share information at the meeting itself. Remember, the annual review process is all about making sure that the EHC plan is working. In other words, checking that it is supporting your child to make progress in their learning and progress towards the skills they need in later life. So you should expect the learning setting or other host to share the progress your child has made towards the outcomes in education. And if you have the involvement of health and social care, you should expect to hear information shared from them, either in the form of a report or face-to-face if they can attend the meeting. So, for example, if there has been little or no progress, then what will the learning setting be recommending on their report as a next step? Are they recommending a new strategy of support? If they have exhausted their own ideas, are they recommending that new advice be sought from a practitioner? Do they still feel that the learning setting is the right one for your child? And what do you and your child think? Do share if any new needs have been identified for your child. Perhaps there's been a recent assessment. The school or other host can send this new information in with their report and recommend that the plan be updated to include the new information. Do encourage your child or young person to take part in the meeting too, to share their questions and thoughts. Remind them that no question is a silly question. The next stage in the process is where the meeting host prepares and sends a report of the meeting to the local authority and to everyone invited. They must do this within 2 weeks of the annual review meeting. In general, if your child is making progress with the support set out in the plan, then you and the learning setting will likely recommend that the plan stays as it is, unless there are major changes planned in the future. However, if it was agreed at the meeting that changes to the plan should be made, for example because a new need has been identified for your child, the report will include the recommendations for change. If there is no agreement because of conflicting opinions given at the meeting, the learning setting should still record the different views so that the local authority is aware of them. They need all the information to help them come to their decision. When you receive the report, if you don't understand it, speak to whoever held the meeting and wrote the report, which will be either the learning setting or the local authority if your child is not in school or college. We sometimes hear from parents who share that they have thought of other important points, or their child has shared something new after the review meeting has finished and the report has been prepared. You can still share these views with the Family Services team through, for example, emailing them. Now we come to the final stage in the annual review process, where the local authority goes through the report and recommendations and then writes to you with their decision. The annual review process is not complete until the local authority has reviewed the report from the meeting and has notified you of their decision. And they must do this within 4 weeks of the review meeting. The local authority can make one of the following decisions: either to keep the EHC plan as it is, And this will be where there is evidence in the review report that the strategies in the plan are working, and there is evidence of your child's progress against the outcomes in the EHC plan. Or they will tell you that they are going to amend the plan following recommendations, or they will decide to cease the plan. The local authority may only cease an EHC plan if the outcomes in the plan have all been achieved and no new outcomes are needed. In other words, the EHC plan has done exactly what it is meant to do. It has helped your child to make progress in all the areas they were struggling in, and now they are able to work alongside their peers without the need for the kind of extra support which was outlined in the plan. Or it will cease if a young person decides they do not want to continue in any further learning or training. Remember, an EHC plan is all about supporting a child or young person who is struggling with learning or training. So a young person can still have an EHC plan even if they are not in a formal learning environment, like a college, as long as they are still in some form of education or training and they still need the extra support to learn. And this includes work-based learning. The plan could cease if your young person chooses to take up a job unless they are doing an apprenticeship or a supported internship, as this is still training to support them to move into paid employment. Or it could cease if they move on to university. This doesn't mean that the young person won't be able to get support at university. A student will instead need to apply for help through the Disabled Student Allowance Scheme, and it is best if they declare their needs when they apply for a place at university. A local authority will also cease the plan if a young person reaches 25 years or moves to another local authority. In the case of a move, it is only ceasing their responsibility. The next local authority will receive the information so that they can take over responsibility for an ongoing plan. The send code is clear that if a local authority is considering ceasing a plan, they must notify and consult the child's parent or the young person and the learning setting named in the EHC plan. You may find it helpful to watch our video which explains the process of ceasing an EHC plan, how families are involved, and their rights. If the local authority decides to keep the EHC plan as it is, or to cease it, they must write and explain to you or your young person that you have a right to appeal and the time limits, that you must consider mediation if you do decide to appeal, and explain your right to information, advice and support through a service like ours. If the local authority decides to amend the plan, the send code says they should start the process of amendment without delay, and they must send to you or your young person a copy of the unchanged version of the EHC plan, along with a notice outlining the suggested changes, so that it is clear to you what the changes will look like. And the send code says that you or your child may request a meeting with the local authority to discuss the proposed changes. And they must include the supporting evidence for the suggested changes, and they must give you or your young person at least 15 calendar days to go through the information and give your views. You can contact our Sendia service if you would like help in going through the information and or help in clarifying and sharing your views. When you have returned your views, the local authority must issue the amended EHC plan as quickly as possible and within 8 weeks of the original amendment notice. They must explain to you that you have a right to appeal and the time limits to do this, and that you must consider mediation if you do decide to appeal, and that you have a right to information, advice and support. Remember that there is information about appeals on our Sendias website, including videos to help parents and carers fill in an appeal form. We also have a video which explains mediation, how it might help you, how to prepare for a mediation meeting, what happens at the meeting, and what happens afterwards, which you may find helpful. We also have information on our website which may help you if a legal time frame has been missed, including a link to model complaint letters which can be sent to the local authority. Now, we've talked about how changes can be made to an EHC plan as part of the annual review process to make sure that it remains relevant to the needs of your child or young person and the outcomes in the plan. The SEND Code recognises that there may be occasion when a reassessment will be helpful, particularly when a child or young person's needs change significantly. The SEND Code says that local authorities must conduct a reassessment of a child or young person's EHC plan if a request is made by the child's parent or the young person, or by the educational setting or the Integrated Care Board. A local authority may also decide to initiate this without a request if it thinks it is necessary. A local authority can refuse a request for reassessment if less than 6 months have passed since the last EHC needs assessment, or they think it is not necessary. So a family would need to give a clear outline of their child's changed needs and why a reassessment is required. If a full reassessment is needed, that process should be started without delay. The maximum time for this is 14 weeks from the date of the decision to reassess. The Children and Families Act states that the whole annual review process, including all the stages we've talked about in this recording, including the local authority writing to you with a decision, must take place within 12 months of the issue of the final plan or 12 months of the completion of the last annual review. Remember, the annual review is not complete until you have received the local authority decision. For children under 5 years of age, the SEND Code recommends that local authorities consider reviewing the plan every 3 to 6 months, but these reviews can be streamlined and may not involve all professionals. However, the child's parents must be consulted over any proposed changes and given the right to appeal. Where an EHC plan is amended, the SEND Code states that the following review must be held within 12 months of the date of issue of the original EHC plan or the previous review, not 12 months from the date the amended EHC plan was issued. You or your young person can request an early review of your child's EHC plan if, for example, you believe that your child or young person's needs have changed and are no longer accurately described in the EHC plan, or that the education, health or social care provision in the plan is no longer meeting your child's needs. This includes if you feel that Section I, the educational placement, needs to be reviewed, or if your child is in crisis, for example, vulnerable to permanent exclusion or is school refusing. However, any such review is at the discretion of the local authority. There is no legal duty to arrange it. So if you are requesting an emergency review, ask the local authority to run it as an annual review with the same timescales. This will then trigger appeal rights if you are not happy with the outcome. Now let's consider transfer reviews. A local authority must review an EHC plan when a child or young person transfers from one stage of education to another. The SEND Code is clear that an EHC plan must be reviewed and amended in sufficient time prior to a child or young person moving between phases of education to allow for planning and when necessary, the commissioning of support and provision at the new institution. For transfer from secondary school to a post-16 institution or apprenticeship, the EHC plan must be reviewed and amended by the 31st of March in the year of transfer. For other stage transfers, for example, transferring from a primary to a secondary school, the deadline is the 15th of February in the year of transfer. For moves between two post-16 settings, the transition review must be completed at least 5 months before the new placement. These dates override the normal date for review because the law recognises that your child or young person needs time to prepare for a transfer and the right support needs to be agreed in good time before they begin at the next institution. To meet the legal deadlines, Suffolk's Family Services team has previously asked schools to complete the first stages of the transfer reviews, including the meeting, by the 31st of October in the autumn term for early years to primary school transfer and primary to secondary school. For transfer from secondary to post-16 settings, the local authority asked for the first stages of review, including the review meeting, to be completed by the 31st of December. You will be asked to name your preferred school, college or other educational setting, and the local authority must consult with that setting and they must name it in the EHC plan unless there is a lawful reason for them not to do so. Any such reason would need to be clearly explained to you, and you will have a right to appeal if you are unhappy with their decision. The EHC plan needs to be amended, including naming the setting, by the transfer deadline. We have further information about choosing and naming a school in an EHC plan, including explaining the lawful reasons for refusing to name your preferred setting, on our Sendy Us website, which may help you. As children get older, preparation for adult life needs to be an explicit element of their planning and support. As the SEND regulations state, when the child or young person is in or beyond Year 9, the review meeting must consider what provision is required to assist the child or young person in preparation for adulthood and independent living. And the SEND code says it can be helpful for EHC plan reviews before Year 9 to have this focus too. The local authority in Suffolk has created a Moving into Adulthood plan, which can be found in the documentation on the local offer. It aims to be a working document to be reviewed, amended and added to throughout the year and at each annual review. The SEND code says the discussions about your young person's future should focus on what they want to achieve and the best way to support them to achieve. It states that transition planning must be built into the revised EHC plan and should result in clear outcomes being agreed that are ambitious and stretching and which will prepare young people for adulthood. The SEND Code of Practice highlights 4 main areas or pathways to preparing for adult life, which reviews need to focus on from Year 9 onwards. Firstly, support to prepare for further education and or employment, and this will include pathways and training options like supported internships and apprenticeships. The annual review should also cover support in finding a job and learning how to do a job, for example, through work experience. Discussions need to focus on support to prepare for independent living, including exploring what decisions young people will want to make for themselves, where they want to live in the future, who with, what support they will need, and looking at local housing options. Preparation for adult life also means preparing for taking part in the community, including support in developing and maintaining friendships and relationships, managing transport, and participating in and contributing to the local community. And finally, preparation for adulthood includes support in being as healthy as possible in adult life. This might include effective planning with health services for transition to adult services. Parents and carers could highlight new or ongoing care needs. You can tell the local authority if you believe your child may need an assessment of these needs in preparation for adulthood. We have a short video explaining these 4 pathways in more detail and resources which can support these discussions, which you may find helpful, along with other short videos around post-16 themes, which may help you and your young person understand their options for the future. The SEND Code states that planning must be centred around the individual and makes clear that local authorities should ensure that children and young people have the support they need, for example, advocates, to participate fully in the planning and make decisions. Young people may like the support of our SENDIAS service, or they may like the support of an independent advocate. Suffolk Advocacy Service is delivered by a partnership offering free, independent and confidential advocacy. The organisation, the National Development Team for Inclusion, which I referred to earlier in this webinar, have produced a guide for Year 9 annual reviews, which we link to from our SENDIAS annual review webpage. Their information also includes a post-16 checklist. If a young person has an EHC plan and is aged under 18, but is not currently receiving education and training for whatever reason, the SEND regulations state that the local authority must review the plan to ensure that the young person continues to receive education or training. Whilst this is not strictly an annual review, the local authority must conduct the review in accordance with SEND regulations, which means that they must follow the steps set out in this recording. There is further information about annual reviews on the Council for Disabled Children website, which includes a helpful video, and also on our Suffolk SENDIAS annual review webpage, and we have a leaflet which might help you too. This video recording was made by Suffolk SENDIAS, but every county must have an impartial and confidential SEND, information, advice and support service.